You're listening to the Really Useful Podcast. This is the tech podcast for technophobes from makeuseof.com. My name is Christian Corley, and this week I will be guiding you through a selection of our greatest tips and tricks for cleaning your tech. With the help of Ian Buckley, James Frew and Ben Stegner, I will be recalling some previous conversations on the Really Useful Podcast in which we discuss cleaning an LCD monitor, keeping a keyboard clean, as well as cleaning your earpods. And if that doesn't feel like a complete solution to keeping your tech clean, there's also some instructions on the usage and how to create your own all-purpose cleaning putty/slime. First off, here's Ben Stegner and myself, in which we discuss the creation and use of cleaning slime/putty.
5 clever ways to use DIY cleaning slime or putty is the title of the article, which I produced a few days ago. Listen, the idea behind this really was my children are obsessed by slime. They watch an inordinate amount of, or they did until I put a stop to it. Because I didn't know they were doing it. I thought they were watching arts and crafts videos on YouTube on the morning before school. But it turns out they're watching people mixing up slime. And it's not ideal, really. It's, basically, and this is the video, right? So it's top down. Imagine this is the surface here. Okay. Yeah. Pour out some slime onto the surface here. Camera's looking at it. And then you don't see any face. You just see some hands going in like that. And it's all gooey, symmetrical, slime. Gooey, kneading and stuff to make quite awful patterns. But it occurred to me that, well, you can make your own slime and don't have to be doing all that with it. It is quite a useful material, substance, because it can be used to clean up. It has a tacky element to it because it's got glue in it, PVA glue, 5 ounces of white PVA glue, a 1/4 cup of borax, and 1.5 cups of warm water. It's important to use rubber gloves for this because borax is caustic when mixed with water, so obviously you don't want to be getting skin burns. Now, once this is created, you get a kind of a sort of a blue tacky sort of a substance, although there'll be a bit more of it. You can then use it for picking up dust and dirt around a keyboard, other parts of your computer. You can clean your computer mouse, speaker jack or charging port on a phone, because they can get blocked up with dust and dirt. Oh, gross. Standing dust from PCs and games consoles. Even the air vents on your car will get cleaned with a rollover of this stuff. It doesn't last forever. You can buy cleaning gel. It's quite useful. It starts at quite a bright colour, and you can tell when it's past its best because it's been tacky, and it goes a kind of a dark sort of a colour.
Oh, okay.
But it is just as easy to make it. So yeah, it's an option, and maybe get your children involved with making it. I don't know.
A little bit of science while you clean.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Have you used any packaged cleaning putty slime?
I don't think I've ever done that. As soon as I saw the article, I knew what it was referring to. I've seen that sold, or maybe saw someone use it when I worked in IT or whatever, but I've never used it myself. But I could picture how it picks up all the junk when you're running it over your keyboard or whatever.
Yeah, I used to have some. I don't know what happened to it. I was thinking it might be in my office drawer, which is basically a drawer in my kitchen. But no, I don't have that. But so that's ways you can use DIY cleaning slime or putty to clean up your computer. And it's very important to keep everything dust and dirt free. Really, I was looking at my Xbox a few minutes ago before we start recording. I noticed it's developed a layer of dust which needs sorting out pretty imminently. But that's the way things go.
Yeah, it's amazing how everything gets. I mean, even it's easy to miss or just kind of forget about it, and then stuff just gets so nasty.
Yeah. Especially when you got a PC tower on the floor, and you've got an animal in the house. The amount of hair that gets sucked up is quite remarkable. It's like a barber's floor sometimes.
When I bought my desk, it came with a little platform to put your desktop on, which I use to keep it off the floor, which is nice. It still gets a little bit dusty, but I mean, I cleaned it out a couple of weeks ago, and it wasn't. I expected it to be worse. I mean, there was a little bit of dust to blow out, but it wasn't like caked with debris and everything. So that's good.
So, as you'll appreciate, some useful tips there, and you can genuinely use that cleaning putty stuff on anything, but it does have a finite shelf life, and while you can give it a bit of a wash, once it has become completely discoloured, it really is time to bin it. Next up, Ian Buckley and myself discuss cleaning keyboards. Specifically, we're kind of focusing more on laptop keyboards, but it is a general all-in-one look at how to keep any computer keyboard clean, dirt and dust free, and basically lasting a lot longer than many of them tend to do these days.
Laptop keyboards.
Yes.
They are a perennial. I mean, they are probably the weak point of every laptop. I think it's fair to say.
I think that is fair to say, yeah. And not only as kind of the weak point, not in terms of them stopping working, but it can even just be a single broken key on a laptop can render a very expensive laptop almost useless, especially if it's the left shift key and you're someone that types a lot. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I've had a few of these things happen to me recently. First of all, there's the HP laptop, my big HP desktop replacement laptop.
Yeah.
The keys seem to be slowly not working. Like they're dying in patches. It's quite worrying. It's a slow thing. And so I think that the keyboard component is defective and eventually it's going to need replacing. I've tried lots of things to do this, and unfortunately, because there's different ways of replacing keyboards, not only depending on the manufacturer, but also depending on the particular laptop line, this is going to require taking the laptop apart completely.
Yes.
And then replacing it with an all-in-one keyboard component. Now, some laptops, it's really easy. You can just unclip the keyboard, buy a new keyboard, clip the keyboard into the top of the laptop. With this particular HP, it's a lot more complicated than that. Dell keyboards, you can buy a new keyboard for a Dell laptop, and that will require you unclipping something at the back, the underside of the laptop, and replacing the keyboard that way. Again, the problem I have, because it's a top-end laptop, or above mid-range at least, it's a bit more complicated to do. It's annoying. So you really, dear listener, dear viewer, want to avoid getting yourself in a situation like this, which is basically to focus on keeping your laptop clean. Nine times, I would say 90% of keyboard issues come from dirt rather than anything else. So dirt and dust can clog up your keyboard. If you eat anywhere near your laptop, stuff is going to end up flying off your food. Even, this distance, where we're looking about 2 feet between me and the camera on this laptop. Food, if I bit into a sandwich now, food is going to, crumbs are going to fly into the keyboard. So there are things you can do to keep a keyboard clean. And, it might be a vacuum cleaner, it might be a standard brush, it might be turning your laptop upside down with it switched off and just tapping the back and running your fingers over the keys while it's upside down to get some dust, loosen the dust up. Heading back to it with a vacuum cleaner. It might be a compressed can of air.
That's what I was going to suggest,
Yeah, it might be one of those special putty things. I think probably the best option is to try all of these things and do it probably weekly to keep your laptop clean. Obviously, throwing a cup of coffee isn't going to be good for your laptop keyboard or indeed any other part of your laptop. But, basic maintenance on your laptop keyboard is going to keep it running a lot longer. This new computer that I'm using now is an Asus. This is actually the second one of these that I got, because the first one, and this probably kind of demonstrates how important it is to maintain your keyboard and to keep a close eye on the keyboard, is the first one I got. One of the arrow keys flew off the moment I touched it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, so the cap itself was it cracked underneath, or was it the actual switch that was?
I'm not sure if it was the spring components underneath weren't in properly or whatever, but basically I was playing Civilization and I wanted to move a piece, and I'd forgotten because I was playing Civ 6 and I don't think you can actually use arrow keys to move a piece. You have to use the mouse and right click, and but I pressed an arrow and ping, up it flew. So yeah. And that was brand new. That was the first thing I'd done with it. I'd got set Windows up, installed Civ, and
that sounds about right. Yeah, Windows, Civ, and then the work afterwards.
So yeah, I mean, there are other reasons why a laptop keyboard will stop working beyond dirt and dust. It might have a bad internal connection between the keyboard itself and the motherboard of the laptop. It might be a bad hardware driver. That is something that you can sort out by using Windows to install a new driver. It might just be poor manufacturing as well, in which case you should probably get the laptop back to the supplier as quickly as possible. Yes. Have you had any problem with laptop keyboards? Because obviously there's a very simple fix for a laptop keyboard not working, and that is to attach a USB keyboard.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely kind of the middleman solution in any situation. If your keyboard is knackered and you need it to work now, I'm sure it's something that anyone who listens to the show would already know, but on the very off chance that you don't, any USB keyboard will work with your laptop, and it'll or even if it's a different layout keyboard. So for example, I have a laptop that I bought here in Germany, which has a German key layout, but I have it set up so that I can plug my English key layout keyboard into it, and it works natively and quickly.
Yeah.
But I would, I've had various problems over the years. The one computer I probably had the most problem with is a computer that I used to use for working. When I say working, it was music production and video, so it was on site a lot in various places. And for me, a Hoover and compressed air is an absolute godsend. And because of the situations that I was in with it, a big problem for me was liquid damage. I had to not only replace the keyboard, but I had to replace a whole laptop at one point just because someone spilled a pint over it, which was not ideal. But being the good musician I was, I had backed up my stuff a little while before, luckily. It's an interesting point that, again, we probably don't have time to go into, but I feel like we are approaching a slightly different epoch in terms of electronics, especially consumer electronics, because we're coming to a point now where almost every smartphone has an IP rating. So you can use them in the rain. If you accidentally drop them and they get slightly damp, and that's not going to break them. And people are getting used to the idea of things having a bit more waterproofness, being more waterproof, sorry. And just in case, I'm sure, once again, listeners and watchers know this already, but that does not apply to anything to do with computers. If you are if you're working and you've got a cup of coffee next to your computer, everybody does it. It's fine, but it's still only going to take 1 or 2 drops of any liquid to stop your keyboard and perhaps your entire laptop working. So
totally.
When we talk about things getting in between the keys, we're just talking about dust and stuff like that. If you get any liquid in, you want to, as soon as you can, turn that off, let it dry, and hope.
Right. Mm-hmm. And make sure it is dry before you switch it back on.
Yeah.
And we'll take a moment from our usual podcast proceedings to just remind you that the Really Useful Podcast can be found pretty much anywhere you find podcasts. So we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts. We're hosted at transistor.fm, so you can find us there as well. We're also on YouTube and, of course, on makeuseof.com. Now, however you subscribe to the Really Useful Podcast and listen to us, it would be amazing if you could take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That will help us to find new listeners and take our podcast to ever greater heights. You'll find the link to our Apple Podcast page in the show notes. Thanks a lot. One particular piece of tech that is prone to becoming particularly dirty is the earpod. There's a wireless in-ear earphone that makes listening to music and podcasts and even movies and playing games just so great. James Frew joins me now in order to discuss the ways in which we can keep our earpods clean of that very particular substance that is prone to make them dirty and eventually impact the sound quality.
let us move on to AirPods. Do you know, I get to this. I'm basically at the stage where, apart from these beauties up here, which obviously don't go into my ear, when it comes to in-ear listening, I'm at a stage where I basically just discard them every 12 months and buy a new set. Because AirPods and similar in-ear earphones do get dirty.
Yeah.
Which is quite kind of why Brent Dirk's article on cleaning your AirPods is kind of welcome, because it's important to know that they're not water resistant. Virtually no earphone is water resistant because there's there's little bits of electronics in there, and it's not all none of it's waterproof basically. Now he suggests using some microfiber cloths, and that's that bit makes sense. And some electronic safe cleaning formula is also a good idea. But the big problem with these things is the earwax. And I hope you're not listening to this munching on your breakfast bagel or anything, because earwax is a problem. And if you are listening to this munch on your breakfast bagel, perhaps you're listening to this on a headset, and it's just hit home what is happening in your ears as you chew, because earwax is loosened as your jaw moves. And sticking things in your ears is an unnatural way of getting earwax out. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. Now, it can be cleaned, obviously, but I mean, it is quite gruesome, and this is why I basically change my earphones every 12 months or so, even like replacing, you can take off the little rubber sheath and like bang it on the table and stuff and scrape, get the gunky bits out, but they aren't nice, really, are they?
No, there's something a bit unpleasant about the whole thing. Yeah. And because you can't wash them, you're kind of having to manually clean it. And earwax is one of those things where it can be a bit sticky or it can harden on the device. So it's a bit hard and tricky to properly clean.
Yeah. There's, cleaning the case is also important, and there is a useful tool that Brent highlights called the Full Circle Control Alt Clean set, which is worth looking at. Now, I think if you're an earpod user or you use in-ear headphones, then taking a look at this article and going through the various steps to make sure that your earphones are clean and hygienic, because as James says, it does get a bit it's pretty disgusting. It does get a bit claggy, and also it's not hygienic, and you don't want to be sticking things that aren't clean in your ears, do you?
No, absolutely
not. No. I'm not a doctor, but I've heard that kind of activity is not safe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I agree. Some headphones that I've bought, in-ear headphones I've bought in the past, come with this little scraping tool. So it's kind of a little metal ring that you can run around the inside. Obviously, it's not going to work for what are they called? AirPods. It's more for the ones which have the little rubber bungs that you can stick directly inside your ear. Now, if you're looking at this thinking, this all sounds kind of grim, I'd rather not put things in my ear, you can either go for over-ear headphones, like both Christian and I are wearing to record this, or something which I did see at IFA is the Jabra 65T and the 75T, which will be out later this year. They sit flush to your ear rather than inside, so they'll get a little bit of grime on it, but it's not like you're sticking it into the ear canal and picking up all the wax. So they try and just sort of sit flat, so you're not getting some of that more gruesome stuff.
Do they have some kind of special way of not falling out then?
Yeah, I tried them on actually. The whole thing has been really well designed. They've got a little curve just at the top that sits it in the I didn't think I'd be talking about ear biology today. The little bit where you can sit. Old headphones used to have grips that you could sit inside the sort of the circle of your ear. You know, just above your eardrum, you've got that little groove.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they've got a groove on the device which sort of sit into that.
Right. Okay.
So most true wireless headphones just try and push into your ears, whereas these try and hook on, so they don't have to go in instead.
Right. Okay. I think I like the sound of that. Yeah. That sounds cleaner at least.
Yes.
We're going to finish off this week's Really Useful podcast with a chat with myself and Ben Stegner again, in which we look at the ways in which LCD displays can be cleaned. This covers computers, it covers tablets, mobile phones, and even TVs. Listen out for a little conversation, or the back end of a conversation at the beginning, in which we opine about the slightly silly ways in which particular technologies are named.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can probably agree now, and we won't be alone in this, that gigabyte and megabyte are possibly two of the most ridiculous words ever coined.
Yeah, and no one, because gigabyte is capital GB and gigabyte is capital G, lowercase I, uppercase B, but you don't see that very often.
Yeah.
So, and if people saw that, they would think it was a typo or something, because most people are familiar with 128 gigabyte phone or whatever, but they're not going to know what a gigabyte is. So,
well, I mean, someone new to this might think that a gigabyte is measured in BGs. Thank you. Let's move on to some easier household and basically maintenance tips for your equipment. Cleaning a computer screen safely and easily is remarkably simple, and yet so many people do it wrong. So let's go through this. You don't use a baby wipe, okay? Because they just plaster your screen with weird, slightly soapy water, and then it doesn't drain away nicely, and then you have to wipe it down, and then you just waste a lot of time. The best thing to do is use a specifically designed cleaning solution and a microfiber cloth. If you don't have a suitable cleaning solution, then you can use white vinegar and distilled water. And then you need your cloth. It has to be something that's soft, so an old cotton t-shirt if you can't get microfiber cloth. Very simple. You spray the cloth, you don't spray the screen. There are various reasons for this. If it dries quickly, it can stain the screen, so you've got to then clean it again. And you also need to be concerned about the liquid running down the screen into the bezel.
Right.
The same goes for TVs as well. So you spray the cloth and then you wipe the screen. And how you do this, there's so many different options for this. You can do it in straight lines. Some people say that's better. Some people say small circles is better. I agree with the small circle method of doing this. And basically you keep going until it's clean, from top left corner to bottom right corner. You may need several sprays, but by the end of it, you should have a relatively clean screen. And it will surprise you how clean your screen actually is when it's clean.
Yeah, I think every screen, especially on a laptop, I feel like just over time just gets so nasty. Fingerprints from a touch screen, just dust from it almost drives me crazy sometimes and you don't notice it sometimes unless it's in direct sunlight. Because when it's dark, it's not bad. When it's light, it's like, oh my goodness, that looks horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you're these same tips will work on a tablet, and a phone and TV, laptop as noted, and a standard computer LCD display. If you, for some reason, you're a bit of a retro guy or girl and love your CRTs, you don't need to worry too much about doing it that way. You can just use glass cleaner, but again, spray the cloth rather than the display, and use an anti-static cloth as well. So that's that. Keeping screens clean is turned into one of those. No one foresaw the challenge of keeping screens clean, did they? In 1990, when Douglas Adams was predicting the World Wide Web, there's no one thought, oh, we'll have to keep all this clean. Here we are.
And most people don't. So
well, yeah,
I try to, yeah. I think, and you can get, if you don't have this stuff, I mean, you can get 100 pack of those cloths on Amazon for next to nothing. So a small investment will help keep your gadgets nice and pristine.
Yeah. In a pinch, you can use the lens cleaning as well, if you're absolutely desperate. They work particularly well on a phone. But don't use anything abrasive as a cloth. Just use something soft, lint-free, preferable nice cotton though. Okay.
So a big thanks to Ben Stegner, to James Frew, and to Ian Buckley for their contributions to this week's really useful podcast. This is a kind of a best of cleaning tips show, and we will be back with a fresh, new, really useful podcast next time.